This conference will now be recorded.
Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of Gen Government Subcommittee is being conducted by remote participation only. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching the remote information attached on the agenda. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as we are able. A roll call vote is required for all votes taken under this order. So I will do a quick roll call on attendance. I am here. Councilor Marchetti?
Present.
Councilor Ryan?
Present.
Ms. Clements?
Present.
Has anybody heard from Martina Shea? No, I guess not. Caller number 2, could you please identify yourself for the record?
Ron Pluff.
Oh, hi, Ron. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good. I will identify you. Thank you for doing that. Okay. Item number 2 is consider and accept Gen Gov subcommittee minutes of February 1st, 2021.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
They are in the packet. Does anybody have any questions or comments or corrections? Anyone? Okay, I take it there are no comments or corrections then, so questions? I'm not seeing anybody. So, okay, in that case then, all those in favor, Councilor Marchetti?
Yes.
Councilor Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Clements?
Yes.
And myself, yeah, thank you. Oh, hey, Martina, you made it, cool.
They keep changing the go-to-meeting rules on me.
That does seem to happen. Okay. Okay, item number 3 is, of course I have to keep bouncing back and forth between agendas, is the request from the town clerk to move the polling locations to the Southbridge Middle High School. Do you have anything you would like to say about this, Mr. Manager, or would you refer to Natty?
Well, I will defer in a moment. This really was born about, as you all know, we've executed our emergency distribution site plan with Harrington Memorial Hospital. We have our regular meetings, the EOC and the EDS, and we've been in talks with Harrington Memorial and looking at the phased rollout of the vaccine distribution. It became apparent that this is going to take a lot longer than some people thought. I had some conversations with Ed Moore and Harry Lemieux, and again, listening to the governor, it appeared that it may take longer than we thought to get everyone vaccinated, and that meant carrying right through into the beginning of the summer. And understanding the rules, you know, I talked to the clerk, I wound up talking to Dr. Villar and Chairman Joven. You know, what would we need to do in the logistics? I talked to Dr. Villar about some additional spaces. He offered up the high school. I talked to Madam Clerk about whether we could do it, in DPW about the logistics, and it all came together that it looks like we could use the high school. What they'll do on that particular day is have an in-service day. And then I talked to Madam Clerk about it, and she's here to tell you about the rules and the timing and why she needs the support of the council to temporarily change it. We're not looking to do this in the long term. It's required, the change is required by law. but also she needs adequate time. And I'm sure she'll tell you, I don't want to be redundant, that we need to notify people because it will be a temporary relocation, not our usual polling place, and we don't need the confusion of people going up when traffic is coming and going for vaccines. And with all that being said, I'll turn it over to Madam Clerk to see if she has anything else to add.
Okay, thank you. Maddie?
Thank you, Town Manager. Through you, Gus. According to Chapter 54, Section 24, the Town Council has to vote on this to move the polling locations. This will only be a temporary thing, and then we'll go back to the Armory after the June. Our next election won't be until June of 2022 after this one.
Right.
So I'm asking that the council vote to temporarily relocate the polling locations for June 8th so that I can notify all the registered voters of the change.
Right. Okay.
Writing.
Okay. I know one thing that I know I'll take questions, but I did have one quick one. Why did you specifically choose the middle high school as opposed, because I've had a couple of people suggest the idea of doing Cole Ave as a lot more accessible to a lot more people.
We could revisit this if I had, well, I should say through you, Mr. Chairman. One of the ideas was the accessibility in terms of cars could be structured going in one way out. I hear an echo, by the way.
Yeah, there's a weird echo going on. That was a second ago.
Could be Ron Pluff phone.
What's that?
Okay, we're not sure where that echo is coming from, but we're just getting a weird echo. So can anybody who is not talking, please just mute yourselves so we can get the echo? Thanks.
So one of the other thoughts was space, storage. The school could temporarily stop the in-school instruction because they could have staff development day. So there were a couple of reasons why, and I did have conversations with Dr. Villar, and he did mention this particular location. It just seemed that we could do it logistically a lot easier there and have the additional space inside that gymnasium, and that people could just come to that one end of the building and they could regulate the traffic flow. So that was how that came to be.
Okay. And also, I was curious, I noticed reading through the documentation that you sent, Maddie, it does specifically say that we could actually do it outdoors. Has anybody ever considering with COVID, has anybody ever considered the idea of doing it on the common?
That would,
And what would the logistics of that be?
rains, what if it, I mean, you can't, we can't.
Absolutely.
And you'd also have to think about the integrity of the vote and security, because you'd be exposed at all different sides, and you'd have to maintain. Having been a former registrar, I'd be wondering about all the ballots and things.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have other questions or concerns?
Mr. Chair?
Okay, I saw Mike's first, and then Jackie. Mike?
Well, I was just going to say the same thing, ask the same thing you asked, Gus, that why wouldn't you consider Cole Ave? Because it is more of a central location. A lot of people walk to go vote, and I don't think there's going to be anybody walking if you put it up at the new high school. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying, I was just going to ask the same thing.
Okay. Okay, Jackie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. To Maddie or the town manager, whoever can answer it better. What is how are you going to notify voters? What's the steps that are going to be taken to let them know that the polling location is going to be moved?
Through you, Gus, I have to send a notification by mail in 2 different languages, obviously in the English and Spanish, to every household that has a voter. So it'll be done through the mail. We put it on our website. We'll obviously we'll have to put notes on the door at the community center to notify that if people do happen to go there, if they don't hear by then.
Okay.
If I can continue, Mr. Chair, because I was thinking about all of that and how voters would know, especially since it's going to be a one-time thing. maybe implementing the, we use that emergency road sign, using that to help publicize the location, as well as
I could
announcing
probably
it at.
reverse 911.
Yeah, the
I-
Everbridge system could be utilized.
That was my next point. That was that is also what I was thinking as well. And then my second question is, if this is going to be a temporary order, and it's going to only really, it looks like only really apply to this election cycle.
Right.
Shouldn't we just make it specifically the language say for this election, so that way we don't have to go back and revoke the temporary order we put in place?
I am going to put that as a temporary. However, I am not sure. I'd have to check with legal to see if we have to notify them again of the change back.
Yeah, because that would be my thinking, is if you put a temporary order in without any real clear language as to which election it's applying to, it could just be a temporary order we're going to have to go back and revoke. And if that's, I would prefer going through that way instead of having to go back to revoke. But if legal says we have to do it this, kind of blasé way, we have to revoke it after.
I'll send a note to Michelle Tassinari, the legal counsel at Elections Division tomorrow, and hopefully get an answer for you for Monday.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is a point of information. I know Ms. Clemens has her hand up as well, but this motion was very specific to the June 8th, 2021 election only.
Right.
So I don't know why we would have to have anything different than what's on that motion. It says very clearly, temporary poll relocation, annual local election on Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. COVID vaccination. Okay. Why would we have to seek legal opinion and waste money to have a further clarification on that? Or even the elections division. I think it's pretty specific.
Okay, my error, Mr. Chair, my error. I got caught up in the temporary order language when I was reading it. My apologies.
Okay. Denise, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do agree with Chairman Jovan in regard to the fact that the motion is specific to that election. So I don't believe that's the type of thing you have to suddenly turn back because you're specific as for that one particular election due to COVID. I would agree and not waste money on opinions. Are we really going to get somebody to push back and argue that we did something wrong, putting it back where it always was? I doubt that very much.
Not.
Yeah. So a couple of points that were made. People talked about, a comment was made about there are a lot of walkers, but again, only my opinion. I've been out of those elections probably 11 years or something like that. I don't even know. And federal ones, all of them. And number of people that walk, but I think it's marginal. But to that vein, not to disrespect those who don't have the transportation, and in our community that can be tricky. I would wonder if it's possible that we could provide some type of shuttle, even on the half hour from the community center, from wherever it's convenient, whatever works, and use that as a COVID expense on the election, because we are using our usual space for COVID shots, vaccinations. Perhaps that's a possibility. School bus, something. Pay a driver, have a bus, and for the day of the election, even if it's the specific times, maybe it's not from 7 to 7 or 7 to 8. Maybe it's, I don't know, 8 to 5, or I don't know. But at least give the opportunity for transportation on some level, to show that we're trying to do the right thing by those who might need it. I think when people really want to vote, they usually have a friend or an acquaintance, somebody who's going to help them out with that. I mean, we see that all the time with usually Ruben's transportation will do the seniors, or, there are people out there who do help. Clearly, they believe in democracy and want votes to go through. So, but I would suggest perhaps that something can be looked at in terms of providing at least one shuttle type transportation during that day at the cost of a driver and the bus company, whatever it is. Or maybe maybe it's something we have some town vans. I don't know, something where we keep the costs down, but we still provide the service. I just, in my experience, the number of official walkers from the middle of town up you might get them parking somewhere and walking, so it seems like more walkers, but most people are parking somewhere and just walking up, to the community center itself. So again, just my opinion, I think moving it sounds like it's the right thing to do. I don't see how this is a problem. It has to be done. We have to have something safe and weather tight. And so.
No, I don't think anybody's debating the idea of moving it. I think the idea of having a shuttle service would be an excellent one. Jack?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To echo Ms. Clements' comments, we thought very, very hard about this decision through the EOC and the conversations that we have, and I'm in agreement with the previous speaker that I've stood at the polls for many times for many hours, and the number of walkers is marginal. So I don't think that's an issue, and I'm sure that we could work something out with shuttles or something throughout the day. In regards to Cole Ave, we did discuss the Cole Ave location. However, if you look at the parking spaces there, the parking is not as robust as it would be at the middle school, high school. And the conversation that we had, or that I had, because I had the preliminary conversation with the receiver and then the town manager and Dr. Villar had worked out some of the additional details. When we looked at it, one was that Dr. Villar was very accommodating to change. He was going to have a in-service the week prior, and he said he would simply move that to accommodate it so that kids weren't in the building. So we thank him for that. Then the area where we're going to do this is the gym, which is much bigger. That space is much bigger and wider than the Cole Ave location. So we took all those things into account to make the decision for this one election to go to the middle school, high school. The parking, the larger foot space that's in the building, and the way they can block off access to that. Because I do believe Head Start is still ongoing down at Cole Ave location too. So we're really limited in the parking space. So it really came to the space that you would have and the ability to accommodate parkers and staff and all that. So that was the reason we went to the middle school, high school location. Thank you.
That's pretty much what I expected. Go ahead, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, and Chairman Jobin beat me to that. I recall after you had asked me about it, that parking was a major consideration. I also just wanted to point out, in addition to what Ms. Clemens mentioned about the shuttle, given the fact that this is COVID related, I intend to look at whether the cost of the mailing or the Everbridge usage would be reimbursed. And I think it would qualify because of the fact we're doing the vaccination in our normal polling place. But I'll have a better answer on Monday. I made a note to see if, where it would fall under for reimbursement, but I'm quite confident we should be able to recover some of the costs. We're going to do our own transporting of the machines and some of the polling booth, the partitions. The DPW has agreed to help with that. I don't think that would be a huge cost, but we'll look into getting reimbursement for that. We didn't get a question this evening, but usually there's a question from one of the councilors. I know you're all concerned about our expenses, and because this is COVID related, we'll look at it.
Okay. Great.
Yes, could I also mention that we also have absentee voting that'll be available. We can't guarantee that there's early voting because the Secretary of State has not confirmed nor said anything after March 31st of this year. But we may have early voting as well. Depends on what the Commonwealth says.
Okay, thank you. So when would you know whether you have early voting or not?
We're all waiting, all the city and clerk town to hear from him.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have comments or questions? Was that a hand, Mike? No, okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion
Okay, go ahead.
that we recommend to council to change the location of the June 8th, 2021 election to the middle high school on Torrey Road, or as however it was originally noted,
Okay.
due to COVID.
Okay.
Obviously, council can put their spin on as they put it, but I would recommend that council move the location.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor, Councillor Marchetti,
Yes.
Councillor Ryan,
Yes.
Ms. Clements,
Yes,
and myself, yes. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Martina. Sorry.
Yes.
You were down at the bottom. Sorry. Okay. Item number 5 is the airport project. And do you have anything you would like to say about this, Mr. Manager, before I go to Rick Clemens?
Yes, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Clemens approached me last fall. He invited me up on a meeting with Mass DOT and FAA, and he introduced me to the project. And we've had some communications along the way. And we actually talked a couple weeks ago about it. There was some e-documents we were signing up for, and I had mentioned to him, I asked if he was going to be coming forward to the council anytime soon, and he said yes. I actually have some documents and presentation that he had to come forward for one of the task orders as well as the overall project. And we had a discussion at that time about funding because of the priorities in the community. I did inquire a little bit about what they do at the airport, and I know through emails, I don't want to steal his thunder, but I think the Airport Commission's done some homework and has an interesting proposal for the council. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Clements. And
Okay.
just for the right, I do think I've mentioned this a couple times to the council in passing, just casually, that this was coming in. The great thing is that we would get 95% of the funding for the repairs to the runway, but to the town, there would be a 5% share. And with that, I pass it over to Mr. Clements.
Okay, thank you. And Rick, I did just make you a presenter, so go ahead.
Yeah, John Henry will have some slides, so if you can make him the presenter, I'll do some talking, and John's going to help on the presentation as well.
Oh, okay.
John Henry
I'll
online.
see if I can make both of you presenters, can I?
Okay. Well, you can switch to him. I'll just talk.
Okay, so John is currently the presenter and you talk. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we've been working on the airport for a number of years, and we do have a master plan that we've worked on, and it's been updated over the years. And for that master plan, it had been scheduled to work on the runway in portions and the taxiway in these, when I say portions, over a number of years. However, over the past year with things with the COVID, FAA through FAA and Mass DOT, they thought that the best application would be is to complete our whole runway project and the taxiway project all at once. So this in turn, as you can see on the picture there, it's basically 3,000 feet of runway will be torn up and replaced, and another 3,000 feet of taxiway will be replaced. And then there'll be a new, on the left side of your screen, you'll see the corner where there's a red mark there. We're gonna actually change the taxiway and make it a 90-degree corner.
Mm-hmm.
So when you put this all together, this also includes all new runway lighting, all LED lighting, approach lighting, new airport beacon, some new fencing. So it becomes a large-scale project. And so as you see in your packet, the total price being just about $7.7 million in total, as of which the town share is 5% of that. The FAA pays 90%, the state pays 5%, and the town pays 5%. I've talked to the town manager. We've talked to, and I actually had a call in to Karen, the accounting department, and she checked with the treasurer, just looking at ways to pay for this. I know the town is very tight on funds, and everybody that sits in front of this camera tonight got somewhere else to put $385,000. So I'm not gonna, try to say, this is my project. I'd love to have the 385, and I hope the town will work with us on that. But one alternative we did talk about and got some indication is looking at doing a bond for the 385,000, so it wouldn't be a drain on the town's general budget to take on this project. You say if we can put the project off, we really can't. The FAA kind of scheduled the funds to be spent this year. We look at 2022, there's no guarantees. You know, the federal government, the budget and the annual ends in September 30th. There's no guarantee in 2022 that these funds will be available for Southbridge, since they don't know what's going to happen with their budget in that year. So we're kind of, the time is right for us to get this done. It's kind of all lined up. This would basically give the town of Southbridge a brand new airport. And, you know, some things that have happened at the airport, we have, you know, the flight school is expanded. They want to increase expand their lease for another 3 years. They have 3 new flight instructors there. We have an airplane mechanic that's working at the airport, and we also have a new company, New England Aircraft Detailing, that wants to come in on our last hangar. We're working on completing, cleaning it back and getting it ready. And they employ 5 people, so that's another business that would be at the airport. So the airport is growing and bringing people in. The new fuel farm, our fuel sales have definitely increased since we put the new fuel farm in last summer. You know, this time of year it's kind of slow. I think, you know, this month we've already sold about 1,000 gallons for $1,000 worth of fuel, not as much as we normally would in the summer, but it's definitely increased the funds in our revolving account. And, you know, the airport is self-sustaining at this point in time on its expenses, with the revolving account, with the rents that we're getting from the hangars and the renters that we have at the airport. John Henry's online. He's got the screen. Maybe, John, you can give a little more detail on some of the things that are going to get done.
John?
John, you there? You on mute?
He's muted.
Yeah.
You are muted. Am I unmuted? All right, there we go. My screen changed all around once I had started presenting, so I couldn't find the unmute button. Hello, everybody. Rick, nice job kind of recapping that. And, you know, I can fill in any blanks or any questions you have. You know, as Rick alluded to, the AIP process here is, it's a little bit, I don't know if backwards is the right word, but it's unique in the fact that it forces us as a design company to, you know, start our design. You know, we, as Rick mentioned, we met in August. We meet, you know, in late summer and fall of every year to talk about the CIP. And this year, the FAA presented us with the opportunity to get this project done, you know, well ahead of schedule. And you never really know the reasons why that is. It's, you know, obviously it's needed or else they wouldn't consider it. Part of the reason is the PCI rating, the pavement condition index rating of the runways and taxiways is low. So it became a higher priority for both the state and the federal government. I think the minimum rating is 70 for a runway and 65 for taxiways. And our rating right now is 53 for the runway and 38 for the taxiway. So it's pretty significantly lower. And then for whatever other reason, you know, whether another project gets canceled or whether it's, you know, the CARES Act kind of freed up money that, you know, went to a different project and it freed up money, for whatever reason it was, both the state and the federal government kind of prioritized this project. So as Rick said, you know, there's no guarantee if you don't accept the money that it's going to be available, you know, next year or even in the next, you know, 5 or 10 years. It's hard to say how they pick their projects and when the money frees up. So, you know, that's the opportunity in front of us, is to capitalize on them, you know, participating, you know, 90% and the state 5% and to get this project done. And, you know, the airport and the town is obligated to kind of maintain the airport in a safe operating condition. And this is a big part of doing that. This is, you know, the most important part for the priority ordering for the FAA is runway first, taxiway first, and they kind of work their way out.
Mhm.
A couple other things that are in the project that Rick, I don't know if you mentioned them or not, but I missed it if you did. There's some tree clearing that's involved to maintain safe approaches for the aircraft coming in on both ends of the runway. And a portion of Airport Road also has to be relocated to accommodate that realignment of the taxiway on the runway 2 end. So I think that kind of covers, you know, what we're doing here. So what we're trying to have the council approve our task order for our design services. So in order for us to get this project designed and get advertised and get bids in hand to apply for the May 1st grant deadline, we need to do this design, you know, basically be complete by April 5th is what we're trying to do, so that we can advertise it, get construction contractors to bid the project, get somebody on board, have our bid number so we can put it in the application. And so, you know, we're working already trying to accomplish this. We're slightly at risk here. So that's the reason that, you know, we're in front of you, is to try to get our task order approved so that we can, you know, we can get paid for the work we're doing. And also, but in order to do that, it kind of is tied to the whole project getting funded at once. So that's the reason that the grant application, or the grant as a whole, is included in the package. So I tried to summarize, you know, most of this in the package I submitted. I'm happy to answer any questions or fill in any blanks or anything else.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Denise, I saw you. It's hard to see with everybody else up there. I saw you. Go ahead, Denise.
Oh, right earlier. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I had a lot of thought on this project. Well, only because I've known about the project for a long time, with all the other stuff that went on up at that airport for many years. But when I saw this on and I saw the extent of the cost, I was clearly concerned, as many of you probably are. And I realized there would be certainly a lot of pushback, you know, probably as to how can the town ever afford the $380,000. And it's kind of coincidental that in conversation with the commission chair, Rick, prior to that, I'd been thinking about the concept of, you know, the airport's clearly making, well, I say making, they're funding themselves. They're holding their own. They have some revenue, additional revenue with the solar projects and such. And I thought to myself, well, maybe if the taxpayers didn't see this as a complete, like, here, we're just giving them some more grant money. They want more grant money. They need another piece of equipment. It's $50,000, it's $80,000, it's $100,000. This is a lot of money. And so I'd approached the chair and questioned the ability to, and I approached Karen actually, questioned the ability of them taking a percentage of the gross proceeds yearly, the revenue, and guaranteeing it to the town, saying that, you know, we're going to pay this off as the airport project and not as every taxpayer in town project. As you all are pretty much aware, maybe not everybody, but I'd say most of the people sitting on council should be, and Rick knows it, I could reiterate, you know, you go through the grant funding information with FAA and everybody, and you realize, you know, the town is beholding for a lot of money. We can't just close that airport. The airport's, you know, got a great benefit to this area, which is maybe why they decided to make sure ours stayed, because it's certainly essentially located to a lot of people. So we can't just let it go into disrepair either, but how do you swallow that large sum of money when our roads need repairing and such? So, anyway, just as long and short, I thought it was great when the commission chair mentioned the potential for bonding, and my concern was, would that affect negatively the town at all? And I'm sure there's a lot of questions to that. Those were things that I posed to Ms. Harno, as did the chair. So that would still be my question, would taking a bond negatively affect the town for that amount, or in that amount? I know we're just working on the $10 million in bonding for the roads and such, $1.5 million, and then moving forward. So would doing a bond affect the town's ratings or have any kind of negative impact? And if so, then I still say that, you know, in one way or the other, these funds should come from the airport to the town, whether it's, as I said, a payback scenario through a guarantee from revenues or a bonding situation. So I think all in all, the project needs to go and get done. And I think it's great that they were on the same. It's kind of neat that they were on the same. I applaud the commission for being on the same wavelength of probably a lot of people being concerned with this money coming directly from taxpayers and not necessarily from what's happening up there at the airport, which we know not everybody, a lot of people don't care about the airport. It's not their big deal. They think it's something else. So if they're going to handle this, this is a huge 95 or 90, 94%. That's a huge grant opportunity. So I think it's great that they're willing to step up and put their money where their plan is, so to speak, and be willing to help. My question, though, would it negatively impact the town's rating in some way, shape, or form by taking out this bond? So that would be my question on top of all that comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Denise. So, and I did get a quick request from Mike to, so John, could you turn off your sharing, please? I'm not quite sure how to do it, to be honest with you. Okay, thank you. Okay, anyway, so there were a few questions in there, and I think logically some of them would go to the town manager. So is there anything you can say about what Denise was saying there, Mr. McCall?
Well, I echo her comments about the airport commission coming back with this proposal, because we only touched upon it briefly. When I talked to Rich, and I did talk to John Henry, he was on one of the calls. You know, I said that one of the hurdles would be the funding, and I did ask them about using some of the revenue, and they went off obviously and did their homework. I saw the email traffic back and forth to Ms. Harnois, and I would have to get input from Ms. Zawodzki, our treasurer, about the bonding. But my gut tells me that given the fact that you'd only be looking for 385,000 over a 20-year period would not be a significant impact on our overall debt structure. I mean, we're looking at other projects of significantly more money, so I don't think that would have any negative rating on the town's finances. Conversely, I think it would allow the town to continue to operate. It wouldn't have an impact on our annual budget. We wouldn't be deferring monies. So that would allow us to continue to fund things such as our pension, our OPEB obligations. If anything, doing it in this fashion would probably show fiscal prudence on behalf of the town and the airport commission, and I think it would probably be welcomed. So that would be my gut response, but we can get some additional information from the treasurer for Monday. Can't hear you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. I was going to, and to follow up on that and ask either ask you or Rick Clements about it. How much does the airport actually bring in right now that would go toward actually paying this bill? You mentioned that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on up there, but you didn't mention how much is actually coming in.
Well, through you, I'll speak. One of the things, the revenue stream we're thinking about using is the solar farm rental that we have at the airport, which right now is about 19,600 is the annual, but it increases over the years to close to 29,000 by the time it goes through its 20-year cycle. So that was the income stream that we thought it would be the most prudent to use for for any kind of funding or bonding. Other than that, the airport does cover itself now, especially with the increased fuel sales from new fuel farm. However, on an annual basis, we'll probably add maybe 20,000 to our revolving fund each year, an increase in the revolving fund each year. So it's operating in the black. It's making a little bit of money, but we are looking at adding another that new hangar rental I talked about, which could add about another $8,100 in annual rentals to the revolving fund as well. So that's what we were thinking about.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. It seems like just a week ago, we were talking about installing electric car charging stations downtown. And some of the councilors were upset because only 4 people own electric cars in town. So my question is, how many people in Southbridge own airplanes in town? I doubt if there's any, to tell you the truth. How many residents of Southbridge do own airplanes and park them up there? I don't know who can answer that. Maybe Ron can answer. Or
Yes,
Rick.
Am I on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we have 4 residents of Southbridge that have airplanes up there, but you have to realize that this is not an airport that just deals with Southbridge. Charlton, Sturbridge, Webster. We've got people from Woodstock, Connecticut. We have people from Munson, Massachusetts, and a lot of these are business people. that are in there.
So how many planes do we have up there?
We have 33 currently.
All right.
Okay.
And I take it they're all being charged a fee.
Absolutely.
As when was the last time the landing and storage fees were increased?
The last time, actually a year ago.
Okay. And how much? How much are they paying?
They went up 2%.
So, I mean, the last time I heard from you, some of them were paying $50 a month, some were paying $225 a month,
Yes.
some $325 a month. Is that about
Yes.
what it is now today?
Yeah, there's 3 different levels. One is when they park them outside, they call that a tie down, and they're out in the weather. Those are the cheap ones. And then the middle ones are called community hangars, where you have more than one airplane. Typically, there's 4 in one hangar. And then you have the individuals, which are T hangars, and they're the most expensive.
All right.
Okay.
It's probably time that we consider increasing it again. I mean, $50 a month doesn't seem much in my opinion, but
Well, we have to compete with all the other areas, airports too. So,
Right.
we're kind of in a golden position here because of the condition of the airport. As you know, there's been a lot of improvements in that airport since I've been there in 2014. And because of all those improvements, a lot of the people that left prior to me going there are all coming back now.
Well, that's good.
I don't know.
Well,
if
I
should
did
say-
take a tour of the airport, and it is a beautiful airport.
Mhm.
You know,
Well, we appreciate
I'm not going to turn down a $7.8 million grant, but just keep it in mind when we do the electric car stations. That, not everybody has an airplane either. So anyway, thank you.
There'll be electric airplanes coming in about 5 years, so you'll have
Yeah,
electric.
probably.
Yeah, we're now starting to get some small jets in there.
Really.
One of the other improvements that John hadn't mentioned was that the instrument landing systems, they call PAPI lights. We right now have a 2-light system, and one of the improvements that it's for small jets and turboprop engines, airplanes. It's a 4-light system that's required for small jets.
All right.
The FAA is also looking at that.
And to follow up on that, actually, Ron, through you, either probably to Rick or to you, is that if we're repaving the runways now, how does that feed into the long-term plan to extend the runways?
Well, I asked that question at the beginning of it last fall, and because originally they were tearing the whole runway right up and starting over again. And I said, actually, that the surface is not bumpy. We have some cracks in the pavement, and that's one of the issues right now. The state has been very good at doing a crack sealing program. And however, once the cracks reach an inch in width, water tends to get down underneath, and then you end up with frost heaves like you do in a road. So, and we have quite a few of those cracks that are an inch or a little bit bigger right now. So that's what they would.
Somebody's causing weird distortions.
Yeah, I'm hearing. So anyway, like I said, originally they were going to dig the whole thing up and start all over again because the FAA requires a certain impactment with the soil underneath. What they're going to be doing next week is they're going to do some soil testing and see if we can't just repave instead of starting the thing all over again, digging all over again. But
Okay.
we have to prevent frost heaves that are gonna, that could start happening, and then next thing you know, we have breakups in the pavement, and it becomes a safety issue.
Okay, and okay, and that's definitely important. But what I was specifically asking about was if we do this work now,
Yeah.
how does it affect the proposal to extend the runways?
Oh, again, it's a money issue. I'm sorry, I got straight off there. Part of that 500-foot extension requires that they reroute the road at the end of the north end where it's got that zigzag in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to become more costly for this project. So that's why the FAA said, let's leave that for the future. It's still in the master plan, but it would be prohibitive for this project.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's going to be put off in the future. Don't know when.
Okay, I saw Rick and then John. Rick?
Cool. John, you.
Clear, sir.
So I was going to say, Ron kind of finished at the end. The master plan does have the extension in it. That's 5 years out from now. And that will be a very big project because that's all virgin ground that they have to tear up and, and put the proper gravel and compaction as well as move that road, the road around the airport. So I think that project would probably entail at least maybe half the cost of this one. So it would be just make it prohibitive to do it all at one time. And then the FAA hasn't suggested to do it. So since they're doing 90%, we're staying with what they're going to willing to pay at this time.
That makes sense. Okay, John?
Yeah, I'll just add quickly that, we did ask, in addition to moving the road and extending the runway, there's also likely either land acquisition or property easements that would need to be sought to clear trees, to have the clear approaches. So, constructability wise, it makes sense to try to do it now. It also needs to be justified through air traffic, and as the airport's traffic increases and, the type of plane gets a little bit larger, it justifies a longer runway. At this point, the FAA didn't go for it. So this part of our design is to consider that, future extension. So our design is, compliant with that extension later, but it's not in the funding for this project.
Okay, good. Denise, did you have your hand up? I see Jack. Okay, Denise?
Yeah. Originally I did. I thought maybe I'd missed it. I'm sorry, my internet cut out, and then I tried with the phone.
You're
I
cutting
apologize.
out on, so.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to make a comment to Councilor Marchetti was questioning some stuff, and I just wanted to make some personal information that, when I was dealing more with the airport back at the time when we thought we would have the animal shelter there, there were things I learned about the airport, that it wasn't just a hub for people to hold their toys, or their hobbies. The airport serves as training ground for some of our services. It also is a place where there are people who volunteer their planes to take sick children to their appointments and to animal rescue type stuff. And there's so much that goes on at that airport that's not just Southbridge designated. So it's kind of like the hospital in some way. Let me tell you, I'm not saying it's a hospital. I'm just saying it's like the hospital. Mm-hmm. A lot of our people go to Worcester. They have their babies known in Worcester. That's why we don't have babies here. The airport is like the hospital in that sense, that it serves a much, much broader area than just Southbridge. Whether it's somebody who needs gas, they need fuel, not because the price is necessarily cheaper, but because their plane is low and they know that on their route going somewhere, here's a stop, or that there's a mechanic, or that there's whatever. I'm just saying the airport serves more than just the elite. It serves purpose. And again, I point out health, business, maybe people don't like business, but sometimes people do travel by plane, by helicopter, whatever, and to do their business, which economically helps everybody. So I'm just putting out there that there's a lot more to the airport than a lot of people realize. And we haven't, and we have to maintain it. As I said, that's something that was taken on many, many years ago. And I think this, like I say, I was shocked to find out the number of the percentage, and I'm just happy that it's the kind of thing where the airport will be able to pretty much fund it and make it happen. So that's all. I just wanted to make some of those comments about the uses of the airport. I'm sure there's a lot more that I didn't even touch upon. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, I saw Jack's hand and then John Henry.
I'll defer to John Henry if he has information he wants to provide before I comment.
Okay, John?
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks, Gus. Yeah, just to add real quick, part of the FAA criteria is that everything is designed to a 20-year life cycle. So, as Rick said, this is virtually going to be a brand new airport. The general aviation apron was done 2 years ago, and the fuel farm was done, the new terminal building. So the only thing that will be left on this airport that is not new is what they call the transient apron, which is where it's kind of in front of the hangar that Rick is talking about, where the fuel farm is. And then once that is complete, all of the airport's entitlement money that comes in. So the FAA designates $150,000 a year for federal funding to the airport. That can then be used, as long as the airport is in safe operating condition, all the safety standards are met. That can then be used for revenue generating projects, to develop hangars or, secondary fuel farms or any other, business hangars out there that would also increase the airport's revenue. So that's noteworthy to know that, this will kind of bring the airport, almost into full compliance, and that, that kind of transient apron is the last piece after that to complete.
Okay. And what's the time frame to complete that after paving the runway and so forth?
Well, that is in a different, it's in the CIP, and so it depends on probably participation from the state, because that'll be, a fairly sizable project, and the state, and the federal, FAA and the state can participate. So it's in the CIP. I think it's right now it's in there for 2 or 3 years out. So okay. Once that's complete, then that kind of frees us up. I think it's in there for 2023 right now, 2024.
Okay.
Councilor Steve?
Hi, Ron. Go ahead.
Just to go along with Denise's comment about people that use this airport, I can give you one great example. We have a store in Southbridge, Aubuchon. Last fall, I had a nice little Citation jet fly in from Dallas, Texas, and it happened to be the treasurer for Aubuchon. So they use this jet to go all over the country to all their stores. He happened to be in town because in Charlton, there's a brand new business. They lease trailers for tractor trailers, and he came into town just to go to that grand opening for that business in Charlton. So that's the type of stuff that happens up there all the time.
Okay. Okay. So I get Jack, you had yielded earlier, so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things. One, I think Councilor Marchetti's comments about not wanting to turn away grant money, because that's a substantial amount of money that we would get. No time is a good time to do things and come up with town funding. But when we look at that airport and the overall plan of Southbridge, we talked the last night a lot about economic development in town and how we were going to bring businesses to town and market the community. And this is one part of that economic, I think, regrowth of Southbridge. And if not now, then when? Because we're still going to have to do this project. And if we kick the can down the road, who knows when it comes back around. I think this is similar to our conversations that we had about the TIP project down in the La Rochelle Way, Central Street area, Foster Street area, where millions of dollars are given to the town, and we found some pockets of money to do the design work, because with that, again, was if we didn't do it now, the next project funding would come around 10 years. So I just want to go back to the town manager. What would be the recommendation for funding this? I mean, if it is approved on Monday night, what is the funding mechanism that we're going to do the match of 385,000? I do appreciate the Denise's work and Rick's work in seeking out some questions about the bond and using some of that revenue stream from the airport to pay back the bond, because that's a little bit easier. So my question is, for the purposes Monday night, if we approve this, I know that other councils are going to say, okay, where are we taking 385,000 from? So what is the recommendation of where that 385 would come from for Monday night?
So this was part of the conversation that Rick and I, and when John was on the phone, had the other day, that one, this is for the grant application itself. And I think Rick told me that the issue of funding wouldn't come into play till, I think, August. Is that correct, Rick? That the awards and the
That's correct. The project wouldn't start until fiscal 2022 for the town. So the engineering is starting, and it would continue. John would, as he said, would get bid advertised in April and get bids in May 1st, and then we submit to the federal government for the grant May 1st.
So the vote in part is to submit the application. What we could do, I could have a better answer from the treasurer with regard to the bonding and the approach that the airport commission had for Monday. But I had also talked to Ms. Harnois about a worst case scenario in that we couldn't go that route. We might be able to take that money from stabilization or do our own bonding. There would be an avenue, I think, for us to find it. And as was mentioned before, you don't want to overlook that opportunity where that type of revenue would come in the form of a grant to do that type of work. And it's my understanding that the FAA needs us to make improvements at the end of the taxiway for the approach and how the planes get onto the runway. So it's something that the airport, I think Mr. Clemens would tell you, we need to make those improvements at some point. And as we all know from the payment management discussion we had, the payment condition index up there on the runway is slipping below what's required, and at some point they would be required to do some significant maintenance. So as you rightfully pointed out, Mr. Chairman, it's something that it can't be allowed to go on too much further. So we did have those conversations that we could find the money somewhere, either through stabilization or looking at a bond on our own side. I think the idea that they've come forward looking at their own revenue streams that they're generating up there to help contribute is a commendable proposal, and one I think would be a great benefit to the community. But if that were to fall short, I think we would be able to come up with the funds, albeit it's difficult, but we could do it.
Okay, thank you. And I know we've talked about before, we did sell a piece of property and we may want to use that for some capital improvement project, and certainly to invest in the airport long-term 20-year improvement. I mean, we would have, there's no doubt, I know that you and your financial team would come up with a plan. So for Monday night, we don't necessarily need to identify the funding mechanism. It's just to allow the grant application to go in, correct?
That's my understanding from the conversations with Mr. Clemens.
That would be
I did want us to have the larger conversation about, I think it was John Henry said that there's a 99.99% chance that we will get it. I think, John, that was your quote. So, likelihood we would get it. So we have to prepare for coming up with that 5% match.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. That's definitely very helpful. Okay, let's see. I saw Joe Catrona first, then Rick, then John.
Ms. Clemens has had her hand up for a while too. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to either the town manager or possibly Mr. Clemens can answer the question. Did the airport recently receive funds, 217,000 for, in a form of a federal grant for runway improvements?
Yes, we did through the CARES Act, 250, just about 217,000 for the feasibility study, which is leading up to the project that we have now. So that was the initial assessment, airspace analysis, concept designs, wildlife hazard assessment, and working on some of the permits. So that was 100% paid for by the federal government.
Okay.
Thank you. If I can continue, Mr. Chairman, I heard John Henry mention some tree clearing also, which brought to mind, again, and correct me if I'm wrong, did the airport or the town purchase a piece of equipment, roughly $100,000 piece of equipment to grind trees at the airport?
Go ahead, Rick.
Yes, we do. We do have a piece of equipment. We're out there whenever we get a chance to grind trees, but it does not, these are large trees. I mean, these are trees that are in the airspace. If John puts his picture up, they're way off the end of the runway. They're, 60-foot tall trees or taller that the equipment can't clear. So that's what we need to get cut.
Okay.
That piece of equipment is for maintaining vegetation.
Yeah. It'll grind up to 3-inch trees, but not anything larger.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clemens. Thank you, Ron. If I can continue, Ron just brought up a good point, maintenance and maintaining the facility. If this goes forward, is the facility going to require even more maintenance, and we'll be looking at adding additional staff?
No, I'll speak for that as an airport chair. No, it's not increasing the size of the airport. So at this time for maintenance, it would actually be better, less maintenance. We'll have new lighting systems with less lights going out. Right now we're spending time replacing runway lights and different lights and having to bring people in. A lot of that costs are funded by the state, but still it would make it less maintenance for the taxiway and runway.
And maybe I missed it earlier. The ROI on the $385,000 investment would be?
I don't know what the return you're looking for, but you're basically getting 7.7 million minus the 385. So I guess I don't know how you do a return on investment, but the runway is good for 20 years. So you get a 20-year new airport is what we're getting for the return.
I'm not at all opposed to turning down $7.69 million. I just think we need to find alternate source of funding, and we'll leave that up to our town manager most likely. But it's difficult from a standpoint when we hear frequently as councilors from taxpayers, from residents, especially recently, our taxes are going up. Our taxes are too high. Our water and sewer rates are high. We have infrastructure needs. We're going to be talking about curbside pickup. We're going to be talking about a new fire station. I heard Councilor Jovan mention early economic development. We talked recently about the rail trail. So it's difficult to absorb the $385,000 when we're attempting to explain to residents and just how we're funding, how we're kind of put funding sources, and they see their taxes and water and sewer and so on and so forth increase. So it's for me personally, it sounds like a good idea. I'm not sold on it yet. I would certainly caution council to review this, and let's hear what the alternate funding or what the funding source would be. If we don't have that answer tonight, certainly we should have that for Monday evening. We know there's declining revenue in this town, and what kind of message are we sending to the residents and taxpayers of this town when we're having a difficult time coming up with revenue that's declining right now? So that's all I have right now. I'm sure I'll have more possibly later on or Monday evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Let's see, last I don't know if you've already answered the questions. I had in order Rick and then John and then Denise again. So I don't know if Rick and John have already said what you were going to say.
I think so. I think we're on agenda item 4. So we're talking about the whole plan at this point in time. So I'm fine.
Okay. John, did you have anything else you wanted to add before I go to Denise?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I just wanted to touch back on the 99.9% chance of funding. I mean, you know, the FAA doesn't generally commit to one of these projects without the funding coming through. In fact, you know, I can count on maybe one hand in 20 years or one finger in 20 years that it's happened. But what we are asking is for the council to authorize executing our task order, so the next item on the agenda is to execute our task order, which is roughly 690,000. Let me get my number here, 689,758. So if that's authorized, and then the funding does fall through, it would be roughly the same commitment to pay for the design, which would still be good for whenever the funding would come through, I guess. 689,000, you know, about half of that money is associated with our construction inspection. So if construction did not happen, then our design would have already happened, which of course we would like to get paid for. So that's why we're asking for the contract with the town, which is also included in your packet there. Oh, and one other quick thing too about, you know, part of the improvements out there, as Rod mentioned, is new navigational aids. It's all new lights. All of the new lights and everything, of course, are LED lights, which also save on electricity costs for the airport too.
Okay. I'm actually glad you brought that up because I was going to bring that up anyway. But Denise, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I want to speak to Councilor Catrona's concerns, which is kind of how this conversation started, which had to do with the fact that as a member of GenGov, personally, I was very taken aback by the numbers and concerns with citizens, as I know my fellow committee members are, as I know the council members are, including Councilor Catrona, which is why the idea that if the airport felt so strongly that this was the right thing to do, then would they be willing to put their money up, you know, and their future revenues up, which, as we know, they have their solar contracts, which minimum is 19, max could get to 29. It may not get to 29, but they're at the 19. You know, the 19 a year is a fairly strong guarantee. So in that, and knowing there were other revenues and such, again, I contemplated the idea that would they be willing to come up with some type of payback plan to the community so that it would not be the taxpayers' money. I'm opposed to I hate to say it that way, Rick, sorry. I'm opposed to the taxpayers' money fully funding this too. It is what it is. That's my dollars paying for the airport that, you know, I think it's a great airport. It's important. But I also know the background, which many of you do, as I said, that the airport is ours. We own it. We have to maintain it. This isn't about extending the runway, as has been brought up. Yes, that's in the plan. This is about maintaining the runway, that it does exist. If we never extend and get the bigger jets or do whatever, so be it. Even though there's a master plan, it doesn't mean it comes to fruition. We are familiar with master plans in our community that don't come to fruition. And I'm not saying that's the case here. I think the commission is trying to do their best. Again, when I saw this coming on this agenda, it was my concern for the amount of money when we had just discussed bonding for $10 million worth of roads and filling potholes and all that. So I go back to that. We've talked about it. It has been brought up that it is legal in whatever shape or form that commission money, you know, airport can pay their portion. You might have to get creative to how that'll come about, whether it is in bonding or whether it is in some sort of agreement. My looking at this before Councilor Catrona talked was, if we're going to recommend this as a committee to go to council, I would suggest it's recommended with some funding mechanism that comes from the commission, not just straight from taxpayer money. Now, could there be a low year? Could there be there might be, there could be a problem down the road, but the reality is the airport is here to stay. And it will always have some type of revenue. It has been being built that way for years now, for the last 5 years at least, you know, specifically, that it is an airport that's going to stay with a brand new terminal building, with, you know, brand new fuel farm. It's generating money It's here, and we owe the, we have to keep it. So we have to maintain it. If they're going to give us over $7 million to maintain it, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. And I'm not one to accept grants on a regular basis. You should know that. I've said no to grants in my time when it didn't make sense and when taxpayers' money was at stake. In this case, taxpayers' money is at stake if we don't fix the runway because we own it and we're going to have to fix it or it'll be dangerous and the FAA will come after us and say, you're not maintaining. So in this instance, they're giving us a lot of money. It's a big number. When John Henry just talked about the 690K, John Henry, you kind of shocked me there a little bit in some ways. Granted, the next change order, that's the next agenda item, I get it. There's this, there's the 690, includes your construction. You mentioned 385. If construction doesn't happen, are you still maintaining the 690? That would be a question. And then that could be a concern. Obviously, do we have to bond 690 or do we bond 385? What do we bond? But those are financial questions that obviously Karen, the town manager and such can go through. I just think the premise was that we came in, I think the commission came in with great faith, and it was kind of interesting because we had a little bit of competing email. I sent an email off, like I said, asking questions, and then I saw when Karen, Ms. Harna responded, it was to both him and Rick had sent one in, and I was really pleased to see that the commission put their money where their mouth was and was really looking to take ownership of this project and not expect the taxpayers to pay for it. So I personally would send it up with a recommendation that there is a payment mechanism from the airport to cover this. However, that ends up on the agenda is the council chair, and again, I can say this, if you don't find the mechanism, and I don't recommend this, but I'm going to say it, you have the right to. When that grant gets 99.9% approved and they suddenly come back and say, yes, you've got the grant, council has to accept the grant. You have to accept the grant. You could say no at that moment, which is, I wouldn't see why you would at this point, but there's an alternative. If for some reason finance can't find a mechanism for this, council has the right to say no.
Right.
It's been done. So you have a failback, not that I recommend in this case, but it is the case. You have to approve the grants. So this is why it's so important that council approves applying for them, because then you know what's coming at you. And generally that means you'll accept them. But at times, maybe you won't. If circumstance changes, something happens beyond your control, and you say, we can't afford 385, we're not doing it. You could say no. They wouldn't be happy with you, but you could say no. So. Okay. I think I'm looking at my notes here that I've written as people talked, and I know it's a lot, but I feel that's, I know Councilor Controna was very concerned, and we came into this at the beginning with not taxpayer money. I don't want to see taxpayer money covering this. So.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dane. I thought I saw Joe's hand up. Did I see anyone else's? Mike, okay. Martina, okay.
I've been listening to everybody. I have to agree with Denise. We have an airport. I've always been a big advocate of the airport. I think we need to fund it. I don't know where you're going to find the money, but I do again agree with Denise that somehow we've got to find the money, and if we don't, then I don't know, because the FAA has been on our back several times about, when we wanted to do something with the dump and a couple of other things. They've given us all this money over the years. We need to we need to maintain that airport, and it does give us a leg up over surrounding towns, which in many areas we do not have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. How much money do we have in the landfill account? Last time I checked, or last time I was reading, said we had $4 million sitting there. Do we still have that amount in there, or why couldn't we take it from there?
Mr. Manager, do you have that?
I don't have the current amount. last time we had this discussion, I think it was in that vicinity. I think it was over 3. I don't know if it had hit the 4 million mark. I would want to go back and talk. Well, that money is there, but I don't know if it would be a prudent use for this at this time. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Why not? We're gonna use landfill money. We might as well use it for something like this. Okay, just a thought. Thank you.
Okay,
Airport should pay.
okay.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you. I've been absorbing all of this. Airport is not my go-to, knowledge base. So I appreciate all the thoughtful insight put in by former counselors and the citizen members. And I have to say, I do agree with both citizen member Shea and citizen member Clements. I really think it should be tied to airport revenues. If we can find a way to do that, I would feel comfortable with that recommendation.
She didn't say that.
Yeah, she did.
Oh, I thought she said just the airport.
Yeah, I would definitely, I mean, I would be inclined to agree with that too. Since it does have, I mean, obviously it has an impact and we need to maintain it, but it's also really benefiting a relatively small fraction of the population. Directly anyway, indirectly maybe more. Do we have, is that a hand up, Jack? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say, I think we know the sentiment of this. The question right now is, are we going to do the project, yes or no? We do know it has to be done.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way around doing the project. So whatever way the Airport Commission and through their work has said, the solar money can be identified to be used. Now, whether that is through payment back on a bond or not, regardless, okay, so the airport comes under the jurisdiction of the Airport Commission, right? So, but it is still town-owned property. The solar farm is on town-owned property. So therefore, if they're giving us their commitment right now that, look, we will, whatever solar money that we have in, we will pay towards whatever it is, the bond or pay back to the town or whatever, that's an accounting mechanism that they could use through the town manager's office. So the question right now is, council, are we going to do this? Are we going to go for a grant for close to $8 million to fix the airport that is not only vital to the town of Southbridge itself, but to a regional transportation plan for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the federal government? So really, there's no, I get the concerns about the financing, and we have a commitment from the commission, and they can work that out with whatever agreement with the town manager's office, and we'll figure out the funding mechanism. The question before us, so it is duly noted, but the question is, are we going to apply for this grant or not? And that's my position.
I make a motion, we apply for the grant.
Okay, is there a second?
Could we just recommend that the council work, that it's stipulated to work with the commission for funding? That we recommend they apply for the grant, but with the stipulation they work with the commission for funding. Just to put it on the record that that's our recommendation.
Okay, I have no problem with that.
I mean, the council's gonna do what they're gonna want to do, but I just say from this committee, I feel like we all care about, this, that we're worried about the taxes. So our intent is that you're gonna work with the commission somehow for funding of some sort, I mean, maybe you can't, maybe you're gonna use royalties from the landfill, I don't know, but in the, does that make sense to anybody else on the committee?
I understand Ms. Clements' point. The recommendation is, are you funding this or not? You as chairman can say then, this was discussed at our meeting. The issue was, how do we fund it? That's your responsibility as a chairman of general government. The recommendation is, yes, we're going to apply for this grant. However, these were the concerns raised in general government. All right. And how are we going to go about it so that it's on the record about how we're going to fund it later on? So the recommendation clearly is, yes, no, we're applying, yes, no. This was the recommendation. These were the points, council, and you're bringing it up to the floor for debate. That's my opinion on that.
Okay, thank you. Any thoughts on that there, Mike? Would you be willing to accept what Denise said as an amendment for your motion?
That's fine.
Okay,
I made a motion we are going to apply for the grant.
okay,
Right.
And you want to add that as a friendly amendment, that's fine.
okay. So are you going to second it there, Denise?
I'll second it. I feel that strongly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I need to know what the motion's going to be because I'm working on the agenda for Monday night.
Okay.
I have that copy here. So
Okay.
whatever it is, articulate it so that it's correct for Monday night.
Right. At the moment, it is what the agenda item says plus the town manager will work with the commission to find funding. That's the way I understood it. That's what you intended, right, Denise? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That'll work. It's there. It's on the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just
I
put
don't
it
see
down
that
as
as a
we're
proper motion.
applying for the grant.
Right. We're applying
Excuse
for the
me.
grant. The town manager will work with the commission to find funding. That's the way I understood it.
It's right.
Denise?
Yes, I mean, that, Mr. Chair, Mr. Joven, Chair Joven, sorry. I mean, the committee does make the decisions of the council and you make the agenda. So the agenda is that it goes forward and we want it, you know, that the committee will, that the intent of that motion is that you understand, you just said it. You're going to accept going forward on this application. But for motion of the committee, it's that we want to, you know, we want it in writing that it was, that they're going to work with the manager for funding. That's all. I mean.
Well, I understand that, but
the council just votes to go forward with the the council votes to go forward with the grant.
Okay, I get your recommendation, Denise. The question is when it comes to the council for the agenda itself, the agenda itself should simply read, vote to approve the submission of a grant, not with the stipulation the manager is going to work with so-and-so for the funding. Right. That's my point.
Correct.
So I just want to be clear what the agenda item is going to be for the council meeting itself.
I think it should be the same as what's on tonight's agenda. It should be the same.
Correct.
Yeah. That's fine. I'll go with that. I think we beat it up. It's fine. I trust the situation going forward. I don't have a problem with that, Mr. Marchetti, Councilor Marchetti.
Thank you.
So I'm
good. Okay. I saw Joe hand.
And Chair Jovan, I'm sure it'll be just fine, whatever it comes out as. So there'll be a lot of discussion, I'm sure.
Okay. I saw Joe's hand go up. I saw John Henry's hand go up. Joe, you were first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just as we continue on, just a couple more questions. Who will have oversight of this project?
Would that be Rick answer that question?
Well, it goes through the commission. We hire Stantec to oversight. They have on-site engineers that will be on the job. That's where half, as John mentioned, almost half their cost is to have people on the job site the whole 100 days that it will take to rebuild the runway and the taxiway.
Okay, thank you. And I would presume that all work has been completed so far for previous projects like this, and that were grants and that were funded by Mass DOT?
Yes, everything's been closed out.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Joe. John, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to note that the agenda erroneous lists 6% as a portion, and it's 5%. So if Jack is using that as a guide, it should be 5%.
Oh, thanks for catching that. Thanks. Okay.
I was kind of wondering why it said.
I think it was just a typo. Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions on this particular item? Okay, we have a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'm just sorry. Were we supposed to put a match? Is that what it is? I just missed what John Henry said, 5%.
No, he was just stating that the way the current agenda item is phrased as it says that the town's portion commitment is 6%. It should actually read 5%. It was a typo.
Okay, I didn't have that on the main an agenda item, so that's what I got from the town Monday night. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. There seems to be no other comments. Councillor Marquetti,
Yes.
Councillor Ryan,
Yeah.
Ms. Clements,
Yes.
and me, I'm a yes. Okay. And Ms. Shea, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And last but not least, item number 5 is the request from Stantec for task order number 2 in the amount of $689,758.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess we'll start with you, Mr. McCall. I don't know if we want to start with you or just go straight to Rick Clements.
I think we can probably go right to Mr. Clements or John Henry. Again, this ties into the overall project, and I think they'll explain that this is part of the task order. But we shouldn't overlook the point that Mr. Henry made earlier about what happens going forward if we commit to the task order or if the funding isn't there. That's something that you should be keenly aware of.
Right. Okay, so Rick, I guess, John, everyone.
Through the chair, just a little bit more. I mean, the 608, this is the Stantec contract for the total project from today going forward to the bid documents, and also the cost of overseeing the project is into this cost as well. So somebody put something up.
That was me.
It must be from you, from John, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So John, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think as was stated here, so these are our design fees here. You know, a ways back, I think in June, you guys approved our master services agreement. So task order 1, as Joe mentioned, was the 100% funding federal grant for the preliminary design, or it's actually concept design, airspace analysis, a bunch of other items that had to be done to kind of see if this project could move forward. So this is task order 2 under that master services agreement. And what this does is it pays us for our design services to get this project bid and get bid results in hand by May 1st. So it ties into the overall grant. I just did the math and it's pretty close. If you were to take out Article E and F here on the screen, which is what's related to construction inspection and our, administration of construction, which is, the meetings and shop drawings and all the paperwork that goes along with it. 689 minus those two numbers comes out to 384,608, which is very close, or actually less than what the 5% commitment for the total project would be. So there wouldn't be any more commitment if the project didn't go through. It would be basically the same portion that you would be already seeking. Right here, 384, 487 was the original amount of 5%. So, basically signing this contract allows us to do our design, have a contract, and eventually invoice for the work. And as was mentioned by Mike, I think, this is a fiscal year 22 commitment with the money. That's when the grants are generally issued for, this is discretionary funding sometime in August, middle of August to late August. And so that's when we're anticipating receiving the grant, accepting it, signing a contract with the contractor and starting construction. And so we would likely be able to hold off invoicing until the grant is received.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so just to clarify then, this is funding that's already in the vote we just made. This is an extra to what we just did, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, if you look at this chart on the screen here, you can see task order 2 for Stantec design and construction administration is what that CA is. That's the 689,758 total that I just showed you for task order 2. In addition to the estimated $7 million for construction, gets you to this total here, of which the 5% commitment is here for the town.
Okay.
But this is basically, yes, it's the motion you already approved as item number 4. This is our design services associated with that. So this allows you to execute the contract with us to complete that design.
Okay. Does anybody else have comments and questions? Would you mind taking this off the screen there, John?
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
Thanks. Okay. I thought I saw Denise's hand, right? Okay, I see Denise. I thought I saw
think,
Denise. Huh?
did Mark, Joe can go first. I don't care.
Okay. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just for clarification, from my conversation earlier, and I believe Rick answered the partial of the question. So we received, the airport received a $217,000 grant, a federal grant for runway improvements. And Rick, if I heard you earlier, this money was used for the design work? Is that correct?
It was used for the preliminary design work. So it was basically a feasibility study. So they laid out a initial design. Once that was done, we sat down with the FAA and the Mass DOT, went through that design. There was some modifications made. The FAA allowed some changes, which lowered the cost of the project. And then that's basically the first step of the design work. And then this task order 2 is the second step, which brings it to the 70% construction design, where it can go out to bid.
Okay.
So I don't know if they call that the 25% design, John. I don't know, in the feasibility and preliminary design, but that was the first step.
Yeah, we consider that concept design is about 30%, which is pretty standard well, it's about 30% for a lot of items, and we tried to get our grading to about 70% so we could pursue our permits. So there's couple permits that are in process, and we also did airspace analysis. We had to get flights, get all the treetop data. So airspace analysis, wildlife hazard assessment. There's a bunch of kind of checklist items that had to be performed to kind of make sure the feasibility of the project could move forward.
Okay. Okay. Did you have anything else you want there, Joe?
Thank you.
No? Okay. Okay, so I'm sorry if I missed people who had hands up. I thought I saw Denise's. Did you have yours up, Mike?
I just wanted to add something, but I'll yield to Denise.
If she had one up, did you? Okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, no, thanks, Councilor Marchetti. I just really being clear, if this doesn't happen, you end up with the amount that was already obligated, as I understand it. I just want to be clear that, so if this doesn't go through at this point, that again, the commission realizes that that's still, without a doubt, the expectation is they would be obligated to work to covering your costs to that point. I realize those are going to be utilized, those plans will be utilized, as you said, down the road, perhaps on something else, but, and you're 99% sure, so you should be good with all of this. But I'm just saying, that is the understanding. The commission is willing to take that risk, throw the dice, gamble, whatever, just the way the town's doing for you. So I just want to be clear about that. Again, for the record.
Yeah.
So that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Just through you, yeah, the commission knows, as John stated, there's about $385,000 worth of cost to get this to the bid to May 1st, so to get, before we send it out for bids. And if everything else failed and all those costs, that would be about the same amount of money as the total project. But chance, even on those costs, we'd probably get some subsidies from the state or from the federal to help move that down if we didn't go forward with the grant at that point.
Okay.
Just on the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I remember voting on that feasibility study, and I remember that
Yeah, me too.
we had to pay $10,000, and the airport paid that $10,000, if I recall.
John?
So anyways, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
I wish you'd quit talking about that it might not happen. Let's be positive here. It will happen.
It's gonna be happen. Positive.
Okay.
Do you want me to clarify the funding there? So originally that was put in as a standard AIP funded grant where it would be the same funding percentage here. So it would be FAA 5% for the state, 5% for the town, but it ended up becoming eligible under the CARES program and ended up being 100% funded. So the town's money and the state money was never utilized.
Okay, that's always good. Okay. Anybody else have comments or questions that I didn't happen to notice? No? Okay. Well, we actually don't have a motion on the floor at the moment, so
Mr. Chair,
go ahead, Jack.
I make a motion that we recommend that council ratify the task order number 2 request from Stantec for the amount of $689,758 to prepare bid documents, advertise bid, and submit IP funding application prior to May 1st.
Second.
Okay. Okay, any further? Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, as we did in the development, I would like to just add and authorize the town manager to sign and execute all required paperwork and contracts relative to the application.
Okay. You accept that as
I'll
a friendly?
accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. Okay. Any last minute questions and comments? Okay. Councilor Marquetti?
Yes.
Councilor Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Clements?
Yes.
Ms. Shea?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay. And item number 6 is new business. Is there any new business? Thank you, Rick. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before you adjourn, can I just ask a general question to Council? Just a comment. Mr. Town Manager, can you give me a call when you're done? I just want to run something by you about Monday night. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Is there any new business? No. Okay, cool. Okay, in that case then, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Councilor Marquetti?
Yes.
Councilor Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Clements?
Yes.
And Ms. Shea?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you all for coming. Have a great night.
Thank you.
And
Hey,
we'll see you
Martina.
later.
In the snow.
Good night.
Hey, Gus.